For more than a century, one canal has ruled global trade. A single waterway, 80 kilometers long, sitting in the heart of Central America. Nearly 12% of everything the world buys passes through it. Not 12% of one country's trade, 12% of everything, moved by every nation, on every ocean. That is the Panama Canal, and for over 100 years, it has been the undisputed king of global shipping. But today, the king is running out of water.
Drought in Panama is forcing authorities to substantially scale back shipping through the Panama Canal.
In 2023, a historic drought dropped water levels in Gatun Lake, the reservoir that powers the canal's entire lock system, to their lowest point in decades. The Panama Canal is not a simple sea-level channel. It uses a complex system of locks that physically lift ships over land, consuming nearly 200 million liters of fresh water per transit. When Gatun Lake runs dry, the canal stops working. Canal authorities were forced to cut daily ship passages from 38 to as low as 22. Dozens of vessels anchored outside, forming a floating traffic jam stretching to the horizon. Some ships waited 3 weeks. Others paid over $4 million in priority auctions, just to move ahead in the queue. For a world built on just-in-time delivery, this was a catastrophe. And here is what makes it worse. As of 2025 and into 2026, water levels remain volatile. Transits are still restricted. Shipping lines are still paying premiums, or searching desperately for alternatives. Scientists studying the region say this is not a temporary problem. Rainfall patterns in Panama are shifting permanently. What the world experienced in 2023 is not a one-time event. It is the new normal, and one country, 1,500 kilometers to the north, has been quietly building a multi-billion-dollar answer. Look carefully at a map of North America. Follow Mexico's coastline southward to the country's narrowest point. Here, in the southern state of Oaxaca, the distance between the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico shrinks to just 300 kilometers. This strip of land is called the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, and this idea is not new. Before the Panama Canal opened in 1914, a railway already operated across this exact route. Cargo ships would stop on one coast, unload onto trains, cross the jungle, and reload onto ships on the other side. It worked, until Panama made it irrelevant overnight. For over a century, the route sat buried in the jungle. Now Mexico is bringing it back, with $7.5 billion and a completely different vision. The project is called the Interoceanic Corridor of the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, the CYIT. Engineers call it a dry canal. And as of spring 2026, it is already moving thousands of tons of cargo. Unlike Panama, ships cannot sail across Mexico. Instead, the entire system is built around speed of transfer. A massive container ship arrives at Salina Cruz on the Pacific coast. Giant cranes unload thousands of containers onto freight trains. Those trains cross 300 kilometers of upgraded railway through southern Mexico, a journey that takes under 6 hours by rail. But the train is only part of the equation. Crane loading on the Pacific side, customs processing, and port congestion on the Atlantic side push the total crossing time to roughly 72 hours, 3 days from one ocean to the other. When Panama's queue stretches to 3 weeks, Mexico's 72-hour crossing becomes extraordinarily attractive. But making this work at global scale requires far more than a single railway. Both ports are being completely rebuilt from the ground up. Engineers are dredging harbors deep enough for the world's largest container ships. Along the corridor, Mexico is constructing 10 industrial parks, designed to attract factories, logistics companies, and manufacturers, new highways, new pipelines, new energy systems. In February 2026, Pemex, Mexico's state oil company, signed a general collaboration agreement with the CIIT to move oil and gas more efficiently between coasts. Total core investment, $7.5 billion. But the engineering is only half the story. This corridor sits at the center of the most consequential rivalry of the 21st century: the battle between the United States and China for control over global trade. For Washington, the CYIT is strategically critical. A global trend called nearshoring is pushing companies to move manufacturing out of China and closer to American markets. Factories built along the interoceanic corridor could produce goods in southern Mexico and reach the United States in days, not weeks, cutting thousands of kilometers from supply chains that have proven dangerously fragile. For the Mexican states of Oaxaca and Veracruz, two of the country's poorest regions, this means jobs, investment, and economic transformation on a scale never seen before. But China is watching just as closely. Chinese infrastructure companies have spent 2 decades building ports, railways, and industrial zones across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The CIIT is exactly the kind of strategic corridor Beijing would normally pursue aggressively. Mexico is now attempting one of the most delicate balancing acts in the world: stay open to Chinese investment without alarming Washington, accept American trade relationships without closing the door to Beijing. To protect the project from becoming a foreign influence battlefield, the Mexican government placed the entire corridor under the supervision of the Mexican Navy. Military oversight of a commercial project is unusual. In today's geopolitical climate, it may be the only way to keep it neutral. Despite its promise, this project faces challenges that rarely make headlines. The Isthmus of Tehuantepec is not empty land. It is home to indigenous communities, including the Zapotec people, who have lived here for thousands of years. Since construction began, local groups have launched protests and legal disputes over land rights and environmental destruction. They argue the government's consultation process was informational, not consensual. These disputes have already caused delays, and they are not going away. The terrain itself is brutal: extreme heat, torrential seasonal rainfall, mountainous geography. Building a high-speed freight railway here is one challenge. Keeping it operational for decades is another entirely. And Panama's fundamental advantage cannot be engineered away. Ships passing through Panama never stop. Cargo stays on board. For bulk commodities, grain, iron ore, crude oil, that seamless transit is extraordinarily efficient. Mexico's Dry Canal requires unloading, transferring, and reloading every container. For high-value, time-sensitive goods, electronics, automotive components, the 72-hour crossing is worth it. For bulk cargo moving in massive volumes, Panama will likely remain more efficient, and the scale difference is significant. Panama handles roughly 8 million containers per year. The CIIT is designed for 1.4 million. Mexico is not replacing Panama. It is offering the world something Panama cannot: a backup that actually works. The interoceanic corridor is a necessary gamble. Mexico is betting $7.5 billion that the world cannot afford to depend on a single canal that runs on rainwater. If it succeeds, Salina Cruz and Coatzacoalcos become 2 of the most important ports in the Western Hemisphere. The poorest states in Mexico become the industrial heartland of a new global supply chain. And the world gains a genuine alternative to Panama for the first time in a century. But this story carries a warning. Panama was built to solve the problem of the long route around Africa. Mexico is being built to solve the problem of Panama. Every solution in global trade eventually creates the next choke point. Every shortcut eventually becomes the single point of failure that the next generation has to root around. If the CIIT becomes as essential as Panama has been, then one day, someone will be building a plan to bypass the Isthmus of Tehuantepec. The world keeps building new bridges between oceans, and every bridge eventually becomes a bottleneck. We cover the infrastructure the world depends on, and the stories behind why it keeps failing, every week on the channel.